The humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip did not start on the 27th of December. Since June 2007, a crippling blockade has destroyed the economy and made more than 80% of Gaza's 1.5 million inhabitants dependent on humanitarian assistance from the United Nations.
Well, big picture, it's terrible. I mean, you've got 1 million people without electricity, you've got 250,000 people without running water. Every hospital in the Gaza Strip is running 24 hours a day on an emergency generator. UNRWA has enough food supplies in Gaza for days and not weeks. By anyone's book, I would say that's a humanitarian crisis.
The closures of the border crossings have curtailed every aspect of life.
An already difficult situation became much, much worse. Israel tightened the embargo on Gaza and declared it a hostile entity. Israel openly refused to transfer aid, money and taxes to the Palestinian Authority and restricted the movement of people and goods across the borders.
In a new report, Amnesty says Israel carried out the wanton destruction of Gaza. Amnesty researcher Dantella Rivera rejected Israeli claims that Hamas used Gaza residents as human shields, saying the evidence points only to Israeli forces committing that crime.
Human rights group Amnesty International concluded that Israeli forces killed hundreds of unarmed Palestinian civilians, and they destroyed thousands of homes in Gaza in attacks which breached the rules of war.
Israel made every possible effort to keep the innocent civilian population out of the conflict.
The result of our investigation on the grounds, the conclusions of this report are there were very serious violations of the law of armed conflicts, including violations that constitute war crimes.
We tried to be as surgical as is humanly possible in a difficult combat situation.
We investigated where civilians were killed or seriously injured by the use of high-precision weapons by Israeli forces or indiscriminate weapons like white phosphorus fired into densely populated civilian areas where people burned to death.
He's like, oh, no, we tried really hard. Well, except for the white phosphorus, which burns your skin off, which we launched in the middle of cities. And except for the human shields that we use with civilians, and except for the 300 children and the 900 civilians overall, otherwise we were really specific as to who we killed.
The Israeli military has seized a ship trying to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza in international waters. On Tuesday, Israeli forces boarded the Free Gaza Movement's Spirit of Humanity and towed it to the Israeli port of Ashdod. The 21 activists on board have been reportedly denied attorneys and are set to be deported. The kidnapped passengers include her and presidential candidate Cynthia McKinney and the Irish peace activist, the Nobel laureate Mairead Maguire.
This is Cynthia McKinney, and I'm calling from an Israeli prison cell block. The Free Gaza 21, who are human rights activists trying to take medical supplies, building supplies, and mostly crayons for children. I had a suitcase full of crayons for children to Gaza. And while we were on our way to Gaza, the Israelis threatened to fire on our boat. We did not turn around. Because we didn't turn around, the Israelis hijacked us because we wanted to give crayons to the children of Gaza.
This boat was about political activists who have been apologists for the Hamas regime.
This boat was carrying the very sort of materials that Barack Obama had just requested Israel start to allow into Gaza. Mostly bags of cement, things like that, construction materials. And so what Israel has basically done is thumb its nose at Barack Obama pretty much on the same day the Congress just put through some new loan guarantees for Israel to go on building settlements in the illegal occupied territories of Palestine.
Huwaida Araf and Lubna Masarwa were released while the other 19 remain in detention.
And again, this is all about forced starvation. The Israelis are literally trying to starve the Gazans into giving up and leaving.
We have not committed any crime.
Now, 14 people are still in custody after an aid ship bound for Gaza was seized by the Israeli Navy on Tuesday.
We won't be silent against this continual collective punishment of the Israeli government upon the people of Gaza and indeed the people of Palestine, which is an ongoing ethnic policy of cleansing. We will not be silent in the middle of international laws and human rights being abused by Israel.
What makes this extremely serious is that, as you say, the initial contact between the Israeli Navy and the aid boat took place in international water, and the Israeli Navy was actively jamming their navigation systems, their GPS, their radar. It was very difficult to get any messages out because of all the jamming. They were reduced to trying to find where they were with a sextant and a compass, and it was just a very, very difficult situation. It was in the middle of the night when this happened.
And we want the people, really, of the world to see how we have been treated just because we wanted to deliver humanitarian assistance to the people of Gaza.
And, of course, the big situation here is the corporate media, which made such a big stink about the arrest of the staffers at the British Embassy in Tehran, and they were claiming it was a new hostage crisis. They're staying silent about this. The same media that was screaming about the Somali pirates hijacking ships in Somali territorial waters, this hijacking in international waters involving a humanitarian aid ship, so far is not being mentioned at all on the American corporate media that I have found yet.
I mean, what comes next if our media won't talk about it? Will they line Cynthia McKinney and the Nobel laureate up and shoot him in the back of the head? I mean, that's what happened with the USS Liberty.
And incredibly, CNN had placed a journalist, a real journalist, on the boat with us. And he is in the midst of all of this. I hear him arguing with CNN because CNN wants to tell the Israeli disinformation rather than tell the story that he wants to report.
The Free Gaza movement's first since it aborted an attempt in January after the Israeli Navy threatened to shoot the civilian passengers on board. That sailing had come just weeks after an Israeli Navy vessel deliberately rammed another of its boats, almost forcing it to sink.
Reports conflict on the direct causes that triggered the incident that Israel says was an accident. Activists on board claimed they were far in international waters when they were attacked.
We were 90 miles from Gaza, more than 53 miles off the coast of Israel, international waters.
The boat, though, while still in international waters, has been rammed by Israeli patrol boats.
We're in international waters, and all of a sudden, we all are flying everywhere. The boat had been rammed 3 times, twice in the front, one on the side where I was sitting.
Our boat was rammed 3 times, twice in the front and one on the side. But let me also state for the record that what we experienced earlier today pales in comparison to what the people of Gaza are experiencing right now as we do this interview.
Right, but
our mission was a peaceful mission to deliver medical supplies, and our mission was thwarted by the Israelis, the aggressiveness of the Israeli military.
It's clear that the children of Palestine also don't have any rights.